Hello, welcome
Hello,
to Microsoft Community Insight Podcast, where we share insights and stories from community experts to stay up to date with Azure. My name is Nicholas, and I'll be your host today. In this podcast, we will dive into cloudjourney. But before we get started, I remind you to subscribe to our podcast on social media so you never miss an episode. So it really helps us to reach more amazing people like yourself. So in this podcast, I have a special guest called Martin O'Neills from Kainos. So would you like to introduce yourself, please?
hi Nick. Thanks very much for having me today. Um,
No
I'm I'm
worries.
Marty, I'm Marty O'Neill. I'm a principal architect and also the Microsoft Tech Lead here in Kainos.
That's brilliant. Could you please share your journey into tech industry and how you become where you are at Kainos?
Sure. So I wasn't sure how far back you wanted to go, but I'll go back right. I'll go right back to uni. So back in 1998, I started a degree in De Montfort. The degree was actually in media technology. Whenever I finished my degree, a lot of my friends were still on placement. Or sorry, they'd done a placement year, so they were coming back for another year. So I stayed on at university and did a master's in IT. After I finished university, I came back to Northern Ireland. It's safe to say that Northern Ireland at the time there wasn't a lot of jobs in the IT industry, so I started my own company. It's safe to say I was not a businessman, but it was probably the most fun 18 months. Um, whenever you work for yourself, and I guess when you're so young as I was, um, I just took it as an opportunity to do everything I could and learn as much as I could. So one minute I was making websites for people, next minute I was fitting CD rewriters or building computers. And I just used it as a great way to get loads of experience in loads of different areas. What that helped with then is whenever I started interviewing for roles. So say I wasn't a successful businessman, um,
Yeah.
but I got a load of experience that I wouldn't have had. So after that, I joined the local college in Belfast as the assistant web development officer. Would make websites. It was mainly a classic ASP, SQL Server, and then looking after our virtual learning environment. Post that, I became our software development officer, and I guess back in 2006, this could be seen as an early DevOps role. I guess I was doing a lot of
Okay.
batch scripting.
Yeah.
Um, the main role I guess I had at the start there was we. If you think a college, we'd like 50,000 students enrolling, and I created the system to automate the creation of their IT accounts to let them put in their own password and register in it. After that, in the college, I moved to be the web development officer. And it was the first time, I guess, I started leading the team. We had a team of 4 people. And I was responsible for the website. I was also responsible for the VLE environment, and all the sort of good fun things that came along with that. Uh, Around that time, SharePoint started becoming quite a key technology.
Oh yeah.
And
So I think I guess you started where there were floppy disks and Windows XP around that time.
no, well, yeah, there was definitely floppy disks and Windows XP. When I was at uni, we used to have to burn CDs, and if you it was like one speed, and if you touched the computer or a keyboard at
Yeah.
all, it corrupted the disk. So yeah, it's been I guess been a hell of a lot of changes since I started out. Uh, Say I was doing a lot of SharePoint at the time, and I had this idea that I would go back out on my own. I would become a SharePoint consultant, and I googled SharePoint consultancy Belfast, and a role at Kainos came up. And as soon as I seen it, it was like, yeah, maybe give this a go. So 2009, I joined Kainos as a SharePoint consultant. I think I did SharePoint for
Okay.
maybe a year. Then I moved into our internal systems team. Um, I've always done a lot of, I guess, SQL Server and IIS and
Yeah.
.NET. Um, majority of time, I guess, back then, as DevOps was coming into being a thing, it was more open source. So it was our Linux and Puppet. I unfortunately was one of the poor people trying to do WinOps, as we called it. So it was operations for Windows. So it was a lot of
Okay.
PowerShell desired state. So the likes of Jeffrey Snover would be a hero of mine, with the PowerShell business. And, early days Team City. Around about 2014, I found myself at a wee bit of a lull in terms of work, and I emailed my boss and said, what do you think I should be doing? And he said, well, there's either a policy document to write, or you can look at Azure. This kind of Azure had been talked about. Some people had Visual Studio accounts, but we never seriously looked at it. So 2014, I started my Azure journey. And I guess from there, I became a technical architect, solution architect, then principal architect. And I've watched our Azure community in Kainos go from myself and like one or two others to there's now like 400 or 500 people working on Azure, working on Microsoft Power Platform, and so it's been, I guess, quite the journey.
Okay, so speeding up to the current phrase, what specific technology or platform do you specify? Is it just Microsoft and Azure or Microsoft technology overall in your role?
Yeah, so say early days, I guess I've always had this anchor in like SQL Server. It was SQL 2000 MCP. So anyone who's been around long enough will know that that's quite old now. I wouldn't say I'm a specialist in anything anymore. So I now lead our Microsoft community in Kainos. So I would say I'm more of a generalist. In my career in Kainos, I've been very lucky in that, I've architected data platforms, I've architected IoT platforms, was here for early days of PaaS and, moving away from IIS servers to Azure Web Apps. And then recently in the last year, getting involved with a lot of the OpenAI and a lot of the AI solutions. So I'm definitely a Microsoft person. I wouldn't say I specialize anymore. I had them. I guess it's one of the fun things as you move up in your career is moving away from being a specialist in anything. I'm now lucky that the likes of yourself, Nick, are one of the specialists in Kainos. Kainos is quite a privileged position to have a load of specialists who work with me and that I can guide and tap into knowledge of. So it's all good fun.
Okay, brilliant. So given the fast movement of cloud, where the fast pace of cloud industry, what trend do you see that shape the platform engineer like ourselves?
Cool. So I guess about 7 or 8 years ago, as a senior group of platform people in Kainos, cloud was just starting to emerge, right? And we had this conversation around, do we need to reskill people? Because cloud's going to replace everything. You're not going to need platform people anymore. And as I say, we've went from 20 to 30 people to like 200 people doing platform engineering in cloud. And I see that, I think we're still going in that trajectory. I think platform engineering will still be very important for the next 5 to 10 years. There's the likes of Devon and a lot of the automated and AI tools are getting a lot of, they're going to replace everybody. But I guess tools like that have been around for a long time. If I wanted to create a website template, I could have done that 10, 15, 20 years ago. Where platform engineering and the roles we do really come into place is once it starts getting complex and you start bringing loads of different systems together, which we do, that's where you still need platform engineers. And I think, if anything, it's probably a growing space. Even, we see a lot in our data and AI work, and even our Power Platform work. A lot of people still need those platform skills. They still need to understand how you do Entra, how you do permissions, how you do networking, how you do security.
Yeah.
And I guess as cloud has made things easier, it almost hasn't, because we're 20 years ago, people like myself had a choice between you can either use SQL or Oracle. Now you have a choice between Cosmos, SQL, Postgres. Do you use Aurora? You know, there's so much choice. And platform engineering, I think, will move, I guess, more from spending all day doing Terraform or PowerShell. I think we're approaching the stage where that part of platform engineering will be accelerated with AI, with the likes of GitHub Copilot and that, but it will certainly not be replaced. And if I was going into platform engineering now, I would learn my core skills. I would learn as many things as possible. You know, look in the data ops space, look in machine learning, look at AI, and I'd also build some soft consultancy type skills, because the core platform skills, I think, are still going to be core for a long time yet.
Okay, brilliant. Speaking of your current role at Kainos, can you tell us more about the amazing project that you worked on during your time at Kainos?
So
one or two. So it could be like any fun one.
Yeah, I guess to put it in context, I've probably been on about 100 delivery projects and maybe 200 to 300 pre-sales projects since I've been in Kainos. The work Kainos does, I guess we're largely known for UK public sector, and that can be government services or health services in the UK. Some of the big projects I guess we've done are NHS app, a lot of the Brexit programs for DEFRA. I'm lucky, I guess, to have been on, as I say, IoT projects and cloud migrations. And I have never done any of the big headline projects that Kainos are maybe famous for. But I would have done a lot of the, I guess, early days Azure, you know, building initial platforms, a lot of the cloud migrations, stuff like Welsh Revenue Authority. Whenever they came into existence, they said we don't want any on-premise infrastructure at all. So there's been I guess a lot of good projects knocking around. Nowadays, I guess my role, I oversee projects. So there's maybe 4 or 5 projects at the minute that I would dip into and help, rather than be full-time delivery on.
Okay, that makes sense. So where you're high in your position at Kainos, in your opinion, how does the company itself adapt to the evolving technology and stay up to date with the cutting edge technology in the cloud?
Sure. It's a real interesting one, this. So I guess what we do in the Microsoft space is that we have what's called tech exploration, and it's a bit of a process of working out the services that we provide at the minute, working out the services that we could provide, and feeding in then the new areas that Microsoft release all the time. And one of the, I guess, key things is around keeping fresh with fresh skills. So in the last year, we've seen a lot of open AI training. So we've done hackathons, we've done internal presentations, and we've, I guess, put a lot of people through training and certification. It's a funny one, the exploration space, because you often have to hedge your bets on what we look at compared to what the market's buying, or what helps deliver customer outcomes. In Kainos, we ground everything in customer outcomes and what's the best way to get there. So there's often quite a lot of debates about, do we use web apps or do we use AKS? And I guess a lot of the exploration is around, which area do we focus on? And once we've decided on areas to focus on, it's then giving people this, the space to develop their skills and the support and the framework. Whilst then people like me come up with offerings and try to help our sales people, bring it to customers. Because if you're looking at the problem is if you're looking at technology just to look at technology without thinking about the customer in the end, you just have a whole load of technology, and that's not good for the people that have looked at the technology or for the company.
Yeah, that's true. And plus, that's one of the way you can encourage continuous learning and development within your team or your colleagues as well.
Yeah, well, the big thing about cloud, whether it's Azure or Microsoft, or whether it's Azure, AWS, GCP, it never stops. There's never a we're done. The idea of, and I think this is one of the most interesting things about platforms. I've been on like a continuous journey of learning for the last 24 years. And I think that's platforms have a big responsibility to make sure that they are keeping up with skills. So the idea of I have a certain skill set, this is what I know, though it's very hard for someone, I guess, I would think, in their career to take that mindset. You have to be continuously growing, have to be continuously challenging yourself, and trying new things. Yeah, it's vitally important.
To stay continuous learning, what research would you recommend for beginners to stay ahead in the field? So this could be anything like starting with apprentice. It could be like Microsoft Learn.
Yeah, so I guess it's safe to say it's a long time since I've been an apprentice. But it's funny. I actually have been on a project recently in the last 6 to 12 months where I had to learn about a GCP.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge now is there's so much learning available. Whenever I was starting with Azure, it was all pretty much experimentation. You might have got a book released, but there wasn't Microsoft Learn. There wasn't the wealth of blogs. I think the idea that starting now, John Saville is probably who I point most people to whenever they're asking about fundamentals. But I'm probably not the right person to ask Nick about how to start cloudjourney. Maybe if it was a medium, the longer level. There's a lot of, I guess, developing your career. There's a lot of stuff like Armchair Architects, a lot of great YouTube channels that I would very, very highly recommend.
Yeah, that's great. Plus, I wanted to point out that we do offer at Kainos, we do offer like license for Echo Guru if you want to stay up to date with some videos as well. So just want to point that out. So how do you
just on the best way to get up to speed with anything is to get an Azure account or a GCP account or an AWS account and have a play. The big thing is if you get your own account, you can't break anything. Barrier I always say this, the barrier to entry is so low now. Whenever I started in IT, if you wanted to be an Oracle specialist, you had to have somebody buy a big Oracle rack and you had to be lucky enough to get on a project. Literally now anyone can pick up an Azure account and learn anything.
Yeah.
Because it's
there's people that doing personal project and then get a job, like moving from the system.
Yeah, very much so. It's probably one of the best times for being able to just self-learn and grow a career.
Yeah.
But certainly whenever I started it really wasn't the case. You had laptops. Well, I didn't even have a laptop. You had a PC that you couldn't run VMs on. There wasn't even VMs, so you had to have dedicated resources. Yeah. Whereas now, it's all pay as you go. It's all at your fingertips. The opportunities are endless. The challenge, I think, now is picking what to start with or what to specialize in, because there is such a wide choice.
Yeah. So So in your experience, how do you stay up to date with these changes, evolving changes?
Sure. So I still fire up Azure and deploy resources. For me, that's the best way for me to learn. Um, Microsoft Learn is great, but I'm not one. I can't read a lot. If I read a lot, I lose
Yeah,
interest, or my mind gets distracted, or I just open another browser and start playing with the actual thing on
yeah,
Azure. Uh, Staying curious and having to play with stuff is probably the most important thing, I would say. If you have loads of paper knowledge, it's great. It'll get you exams and that. But building stuff, seeing it break and seeing real problems, for me, trumps everything. That's, I guess, how I would recommend staying up to date with things.
yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so it's like practice, keep practicing until you get it perfect and stuff.
Recognize what you've learned over a
Yeah,
period of time, and search without the skills and experience they are just paper. Um, it's important to build the skills. You know yourself, Nick.
yeah, you need
Whenever
both.
you're on the project and you get under pressure, if you don't have the skills and experience, you get yourself in, interesting
Yeah,
areas fairly quickly.
that's that's great. Yeah, no. So, just we're wrapping up this episode, so we just want to know. We're always interested to know the guest itself. So, are you looking forward to any Microsoft events in the cloud?
Uh,
Whether it's partners or Ignite.
yeah, I like watching your adventures, Nick. I have to say,
Thank
I,
you.
I can't travel around as much. Through family commitments. Watching you at the MVP Summit, I was very, very envious of. Um, I like the big events. I like Build. I like Ignite. As I say, for me, there's so much now on YouTube as well. The Microsoft channels, John Saville, and that there's so much great stuff out there. There's another great, I guess, podcast for people in the IT industry run by
Yeah.
Ben Pierce, Tech World Human Skills. I'd highly recommend that as well. He had Scott Hanselman on a couple of weeks ago, and he always has industry experts, and they're really good podcasts to help you think about different areas of career and as you're working.
That's brilliant. So, just one last thing before we wrap up. So, how can people get in touch with yourself if you want any quick questions?
Sure. Email is probably the easiest. Martino@Kainos.com. I would say you can find me on Twitter at Marty080, and I'm on LinkedIn as well. I've never consistently blogged or been in the socials, so a lot of it is just pictures of me playing with the kids or growing peas. But yeah, if people want to reach out, I'm sure you can point them in my direction as well, Nick.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for joining, Marty. So, in a few weeks, it's going to be on social media like Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. So, thanks a lot. Bye.